with everything that's been happening all this week, all the updates, the trade for Isaiah Simmons and things like that, I forgot to get out a preview of the New York Giants versus New York Jets in week 3 of the preseason. So here this is right now. And even though we already don't believe it's going to be that big of a game, because again, this is not going to be a dress rehearsal like it normally is in previous years where it's the Giants versus the Jets. It's still going to be considered the Snoopy Bowl. Still going to be considered that. Aaron Rodgers will be making his preseason debut, but when it comes to the New York Giants, we really don't know who's going to play for sure yet. We can all speculate that we won't see Daniel Jones. We're not going to see Saquon Barkley. Probably not going to see some of the other starting receivers, but we are going to see some starters. They can't sit everybody. And for me, offense is one thing, but the defense is a whole other thing. With these young cornerbacks, Tay Banks, Trey Hawkins, I think these guys should play a little bit. I don't expect Aaron Rodgers to play more than like 2 or 3 series, depending on how they do, if they're able to move the ball, if they're able to score, things like that. It could be a 1 series and done if they're able to march down the field and score on the Giants. But again, I don't expect to see much of Aaron Rodgers. Just a taste, just a small taste. But I do want to take this time to just think about some of these guys that are on the roster bubble, I should say, and what they might have to do in order to try to make this team, or some players to watch, some guys that can possibly make it to the practice squad. And I'm just going to get into some of that, but I just want to talk a little bit about what I need to see against the Jets. And again, if Aaron Rodgers is going to start like they say he is, if they are going to play some series, I want to make sure that the guys that we have in there, again, I don't think we'll see Dexter Lawrence or Leonard Williams. I believe we'll see all backups when it comes to the defense, maybe outside of, the 2 rookies and maybe Pinnock, if Pinnock plays, but then Belt, and then whoever those guys are back there as a safety spot. You might see Javarius Owens start. I think that's a guy that I do want to see get a lot of reps, especially against Aaron Rodgers, because I do believe that Javarius Owens does make the squad. And I do believe that he'll be a contributor on special teams, and he might be able to come in a pinch and give you some defensive snaps too, depending on what we're looking like as far as depth goes. But with the signing of Isaiah Simmons, with Pinnock and Dane Belton already being there with McKinney, it's probably going to be hard for Javarius Owens to get some snaps. So I'm just going to go ahead and get my list out of players to watch, because this being the last game for a lot of these players. They're not going to make the team. They might not make anybody else's team as well. But these guys are fighting, an interview, you can call it, for other teams, practice squads and things like that. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these guys do make the practice squad of other teams if they do not make the practice squad for the Giants. So one roster bubble challenge thing, or position that I should say, is between Tommy Sweeney and Chris Myarick. Now, we've heard more about Tommy Sweeney this training camp than we have about Chris Myarick, but Chris Myarick did play for the New York Giants last year, played a decent amount, got a decent amount of snaps, was more of that H-back, fullback type of guy. But yeah, he was on the squad last year. We brought Tommy Sweeney in from Buffalo, familiar with Dable, familiar with, the system. And I still think that it's a battle. Now, we did have a scare a few days ago with Tommy Sweeney. He needed some medical attention. A couple days ago, he had to be brought out on a gurney. They had to take his shirt off, things and there's a lot of speculation about what could have happened. They did ask questions to Brian Dable about, what his condition was. And he did say that, that he was stable and things like that. But it's very, very scary. And I wonder how much of a decision has to be made now between, do you keep Tommy Sweeney or do you keep Chris Myarick? Does Tommy Sweeney start on the IR list? You really don't know. But hopefully, I hope that he's healthy. You pray for the best, and hopefully Tommy Sweeney can come back, make a full recovery. But that's a good question now, is like, what happens with that 4th tight end spot? Because I do believe that we keep 4 tight ends, on the 53, or I should say on the initial 53. Next, I want to talk about Jashaun Corbin versus Gary Brightwell. Now, Gary Brightwell has the injury. He could possibly be a candidate for injured reserve. And if that is the case, I can see the New York Giants keeping 4 running backs as well. And I've been saying this for a few weeks now, 4 tight ends, 4 running backs. And I really do believe that we keep, 4 of each. I don't believe James Robinson is going to make the 53. I think Jashaun Corbin made a case for himself. But when you think about, you already have 3 running backs. You have Saquon Barkley, you have Matt Breida, you have Eric Gray. These guys, in my opinion, are going to be locks. And then you have Jashaun Corbin and Gary Brightwell. Well, Brightwell hasn't been practicing, dealing with an injury. Could be a candidate for the IR. And Jashaun Corbin, I think, will make, possibly this 53. That I actually have that in my prediction. But I need to see a good showing from Jashaun Corbin tomorrow in that game against the Jets. And I think that'll bode well with the decision makers of if that man can make the 53. Next, I want to talk about Bobby McCain and also Amani Oruwariye. Now, when we first signed these guys, I pretty much thought they were going to make the team. I didn't expect to have the training camp that Trey Hawkins had. And I thought that, Bobby McCain would be pretty much a lock because he can give you some safety versatility along with a nickelback versatility. And he seems like he could be a guy that makes a team, and he still might be able to make the team. If you want to add another guy to that list with these two is going to be Nick McLeod. Now, Nick McLeod is dealing with an injury. And could he be on the roster bubble? Absolutely. Especially now with the pickup of Isaiah Simmons. He's a DB / linebacker and a guy that can probably take a roster spot from a lot of these guys. And so you got Bobby McCain, Warrior, and Nick McLeod that are on a roster bubble now, in my opinion. And I don't know if one of those guys makes it, to the 53 or not. I want to talk about the defensive line a little bit. Obviously, Jordan Riley has come on strong. DJ Davison needs to have a big day against the Jets. He needs to show that he can be the guy that we think he can be as far as being a part of the rotation in the defensive front. Because it seems like right now Jordan Riley is making DJ Davison an afterthought. And that gives you the ability to keep 5 defensive linemen instead of 6. And that means you can add another spot to another position that might need that extra body. But DJ Davison absolutely needs to have a good showing, in my opinion, either to make this roster. Now, I do believe he can be a great candidate for the practice squad, and that will be somebody I would target for the practice squad if he does not make the team. Another guy that I like a lot that we're not getting a lot of news about is going to be Alex Cook. That's the safety UDFA out of Washington. He showed that he can read some good keys. He has some good vision, some good anticipation on the defensive side. And Alex Cook, buried on the depth chart again, one of those guys that just ends up being too far down, not being able to crack, the rotation. But I think he would be a great candidate to add to the practice squad because I think he has some growth and development in him that can make him a contributor in the future, possibly on special teams and things like that. Another guy that I think that's also on the roster bubble, but I like some guys in front of him, is Tayshawn Bauer. Now, they have him marked as like a 3 technique coming in there. They have him as an edge, but he's playing more of like a 3 technique in the preseason games that I've watched. And he gives you some versatility. He does add to a part of a room that we don't have a lot of depth on, and that is a 3 technique. You can say that Nacho can play 3 technique. We can say that Ashawn Robinson can do it in a pinch as well. But these guys are full on like defensive tackles. Leonard Williams is more of a defensive tackle, but more like a defensive end, a bigger body defensive end. And we don't have too many guys that fit that mold. Maybe Ryder Anderson, but he's dealing with an injury, also in a walking boot. And you really don't know when he's going to get back. And so Tayshawn Bauer, Ryder Anderson, these are guys that might hang around, possibly on the practice squad if somebody else doesn't pick them up. But if we're able to keep these guys, fantastic on the practice squad. Let's see. Cam Brown. Cam Brown is dealing with an injury, and I think time might be up for Cam Brown. I slightly edge Carter Coughlin over Cam Brown, and to me, Carter Coughlin is even on the roster bubble. So if Carter Coughlin is on the roster bubble, then Cam Brown is on the outside looking in my opinion. And I think that he gives you more value as far as Carter Coughlin over Cam Brown. So if I'm making a decision between those two, if I have to make a decision between those two, I'm leaning more towards Carter Coughlin because he can come in a pinch and give you some edge work and some middle linebacker work. And I think he adds a little bit more value than Cam Brown does on regular defense. And yeah, man, I'm just looking down my list trying to see if I forgot anybody. Kobe Smith, Baldonado is another guy that's on the roster bubble, in my opinion. Do you take a chance on a guy like Baldonado? I think he is raw, still needs to be developed, but the potential is there. I would love to keep him on the 53, but it looks like he might be a practice squad guy, especially with Timon Fox possibly getting that last edge spot on the active 53. But it's just a lot of guys that need to have a big game tomorrow against the Jets in order to either solidify themselves, get themselves off the roster bubble and on the team, or establish themselves to be available for the practice squad, or either be on another team's practice squad. Because I don't think a lot of these guys on this list get waived and get picked up, added to another team's 53. I can see them going to a practice squad. There's a couple on this list that might make it to a 53, like a Bobby McCain. I can see him actually being a guy that makes another active 53. But other than that, yeah, I think these guys are going to be practice squad guys either for the New York Giants or for, you know, another team in the NFL. And that's not a bad thing. Some people get their start on the practice squad. We've seen superstars make it from the practice squad. And just because some guys might not make that 53 initially, hopefully they don't give up. Hopefully they keep their eye on the prize and keep chasing, you know, their dreams of making it in the NFL. But that's going to be my preview of the New York Giants versus the Jets. Again, don't expect to see a lot of Aaron Rodgers, maybe a couple of series, but in those series that he is playing, I'm hoping that the defense are able to put up a good enough stand against Aaron Rodgers and that Jets, especially because you're going to see some first-team guys. You're going to see that first-team offensive line. You're going to see some first-team receivers out there on the field with Aaron Rodgers because it is Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be thrown to some of his main guys. Maybe not Garrett Wilson, but just think about that wide receiver room. There's a lot of talent there, and for me, thinking about the defense and thinking about Wink Martindale, you get an opportunity to see your two young corners against Aaron Rodgers and some decent wide receivers, because even their fourth and fifth wide receiver are pretty good over there and probably could start for some other teams. So I think it will be overall a good look for these guys to get some good snaps against Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So that's going to be my video, and I want to thank everybody for vibing with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And from one Giants fan to another, this is Big Dad Schnoes, Big Blue Nation. Let's go. And also, we're not going to see Isaiah Simmons in the preseason game at all. It's too early. He just got in the building. I will be absolutely shocked if he made it on the field on Saturday, actually getting some snaps. I don't even think he has a jersey number picked out yet. But let's go.